Welcome to the Conversations with Christians Engaged podcast. I'm your host, Bunny Pounds, the president of Christians Engaged. This ministry exists to awaken, motivate, educate, and empower ordinary believers in Jesus Christ to do three things: to pray for our elected officials and our nation regularly, to vote in every election to impact our culture, and to engage in some form of civic education or involvement for the well-being of our nation.
I'm so thankful, Bunny, for what you do. A lot of people talk the talk, but you really walk the walk.
I love it. Love teaming up with you, Bunny. So excited about what you're doing and the people you're reaching. And
I will stand and lock arms with this woman of God, Bunny Pounds, any day of the week.
Bunny, you are a new hero of mine.
America is worth it. Now is the time. America needs your involvement. Please take our pledge to pray, vote, and engage. Join with a movement of other Christians that are doing these three simple things that can really impact this nation. Join us. Hey everybody, it's Bunny Pounds, Conversations with Christians Engaged. I am loving this new series. Our last series last month was on the transgenderism issue. This month, we are talking about life, the sanctity of life in a post-Roe world. Things have not slowed down. The battle is just different. And so I love hearing all the aspects of all of our friends in the pro-life movement, and we're here to help you activate for America. So today, I couldn't be more thrilled to have one of my heroes in the movement, Abby Johnson. Abby wrote a best-selling book called Unplanned. She spent over 8 years in Planned Parenthood, and then we're going to hear some of her story today came out of that. There was a movie created about her story and about over her book called Unplanned. Actually, one of our dear friends that we kind of grew up with, Todd Terry, played the abortionist in that movie. So we've got some acting friends that were in the part of that film. But if you haven't heard her story, we're going to get into that and then talk to Abby. She's on the front lines of this, and she's going to know how to navigate this and how to tell us how to really get involved. So, Abby Johnson, great to have you, friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, for those of people in our audience that have not heard your story, can you give us the 5-minute version of it? And you're a mother and 8 kids and a wife and a Texan. So kind of give us the short version, then we'll go into everything else.
Sure. Well, I worked for Planned Parenthood for 8 years of my life. I was a clinic director at one of their facilities with the Houston affiliate. And I got involved in college, didn't know anything about Planned Parenthood or really much about abortion at all. I grew up in church, grew up very well churched, grew up Southern Baptist, but, didn't hear anything about abortion in the church from the pulpit and youth group, nothing like that. And we didn't talk about it at home. My parents were pro-life, but we didn't sit around and talk about abortion at the dinner table or anything like that. It was just a different time. Abortion wasn't in the media like it is now. We didn't have the internet or social media. So just wasn't really discussed. And went to college, got involved with Planned Parenthood, thought I was helping women, thought I was empowering women, and believed, at the beginning, Planned Parenthood's forward-facing goal, which was to make abortion safe, legal, and rare, and thought that's really what we were trying to do. And it wasn't until later into my career, once I really started kind of rising up the ranks of the organization, that I realized, look, abortion is a product we're trying to sell, just like you go into a car dealership and they're trying to sell you a car. You walk into a Planned Parenthood, we're trying to sell you an abortion. And I guess at the time, I wasn't, at that time, I'd been there for so long, I wasn't really bothered by that, I guess, at that time. But I didn't leave until I actually witnessed a live ultrasound guided abortion procedure take place. And I saw a 13-week-old baby fight and struggle for his life against the abortion instruments. And I'd never seen that before. That type of abortion procedure is not common. Actually, using an ultrasound during the abortion is not something that's commonly done. And when I saw that take place, and I saw that child trying to fight for his life, I knew that I'd been lied to by Planned Parenthood. I had eagerly believed this lie. I wasn't a victim. I had believed it. And then I had, spoken this lie. I had told this lie then to thousands and thousands of women. And, but I knew that there was life in the womb. I knew that there was humanity in the womb. And I knew that if those two things were true, then I was on the wrong side of this debate. So that was when I decided that I needed to leave.
And leave you did. And you had some strategic people in your life that were helping you in that process. And I think this is something people don't understand, that it's people reaching out their hand of compassion and mercy and love, and people praying over this that, help people walk out of that. So what was that like to walk out of that? Can you tell that part of the story, and just some people that were in your life that helped you walk through that?
Yeah. I mean, it was hard to leave. People probably think that's weird because, I was walking away from a terrible thing, right? And I had seen this terrible thing. So, why wouldn't I want to just grab my stuff and run out of there? But, and in a way I did, but I also knew that I wasn't just leaving a job behind. I was really leaving my identity. At the time. That had been who I was. I was this pro-choice feminist, right? That's who I was. And that's who I had been for 8 years. I was the Planned Parenthood director. People knew me as that in town. And so everything I did was wrapped up in that identity. All of my friends were friends from the clinic, friends from the abortion industry. We went to church we started going to an Episcopal church because the Episcopalian doctrine is pro-choice. And our Episcopal church was very supportive of me working at Planned Parenthood. Like, everybody there were donors to Planned Parenthood. So they loved that I worked there. And I thought, I'm about to lose everything in my life. Not only am I losing my job, not only, if I walk away from my job, yes, I'm losing my job. I'm losing my stable income. I made a ton of money.
Yep.
So I'm losing that, but I'm also going to be losing all of my friends. This community of people that I've been around, like my support community, right? I'm losing that. I'm losing my church community that we were very close to, So I'm losing that. I'm losing my faith community. And I was like, this is going to turn my life completely upside down. And so I wasn't like really excited to leave. I knew I had to leave, but I was very apprehensive about what the future was going to look like. And, but I did it anyway, because I knew I had to. And the thing that really helped me, I think, was having that faith foundation that I grew up with, and knowing that I had confidence that God would carry me through it, because of that faith I grew up with as a child. So, and I had my parents. I had amazing parents, and I had an amazing husband who had always been pro-life. So I had those people, the closest people in my life were, of course, very supportive. So that was important. And then there was a pro-life organization called the Coalition for Life, and they were the people who were always outside praying in front of my facility. And they're actually the people that I went to when I left and said, hey, you guys have always said you would help me get a job if I ever wanted to leave. And I never thought that would be me, but here I am standing in front of you saying, I'm leaving and I need a job. And they really, jumped to attention and said, okay, we're here to help you. And they became my new friends, because when I did leave the industry, it was true that, all these people that I had been friends with that were supposedly my best friends for 8 years, they turned their back on me. Not only did they just turn their back on me, they actually disconnected their phone numbers so that I wouldn't be able to get a hold of them. And they testified against me in court when Planned Parenthood took me to court and just said what a terrible person I was. And I mean, it was very upending, but it was great. In the end, it was great. And because it was the right thing to do.
And I don't think people understand the persecution that you go through when you make such a dramatic shift like that. You know, in politics, I've been in the government politics space for 20 years, Abby, and we always say, you know, if you're against somebody in a race, you're probably going to end up aligning with them somewhere else eventually. So you kind of like learn to keep your enemies close. But it really is, when you make such a dramatic shift, it is really part of people's identities, how they identify as pro-choice or pro-life. It's got to be a huge deal. Now, how did that work into you starting this incredible ministry where you actually lead abortion providers and workers out of that, where they leave the industry and you help them through your ministry, and then there was none? Did that kind of, I guess your part of your story helped you realize that was important?
Yeah. So I had, I left in October of 2009. It was so my book came out January 11th of 2011, my first book, Unplanned. And, a few months after that had been out, I started getting some emails from current clinic workers who were working in the abortion industry. And they were reaching out, basically just saying, I read your book. I picked it up because Planned Parenthood sent out a notice saying that your book was something we should not read. And so that made them curious. So they picked it up to read it. And they had found truth in it. They picked it up to read it as a critic, and they had found truth in it. And so basically they were reaching out saying, we want to leave. Can you help us? And I guess I had never really thought about it, but I thought, well, gosh, certainly in the pro-life movement, there's some kind of organization, on a national scale that is, reaching out to abortion clinic workers and helping them leave the abortion industry. But when I looked around, there wasn't. It was like this, piece of the puzzle that had just been missing. People just, I don't know, I guess people just thought that abortion clinic workers could not be reached. And I think that was kind of the general consensus. And, but eventually I had a lot of people reaching out. I had a lot of workers reaching out, and about a dozen. And so my husband and I just kind of helped them transition out on their own and on our own. And we, we're making phone calls and helping them get jobs. And we were giving them money out of our own pocket to help them transition, into their new jobs and replacing income and things like that. And so, at that time, I really just started praying. I was like, Lord, I just wish you would put it on somebody's heart to start an organization for abortion clinic workers,
That's how it starts.
And I prayed that for, I don't know, several months, like a good, 4 months, probably, every day. I'm like, come on, Lord, just tap on somebody's heart, and, finally he's like, yeah, I am, dummy. Like, it's yours. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't know how to start a nonprofit. I can run one, but I don't know how to start one. And, but he, God just really led us through everything and brought the right people, to surround us through that time. And we got it started, and we officially launched, and then there were none, in June of 2012, and really launched it with so much skepticism from the pro-life movement. I mean, leaders in the movement, pretty much every leader I talked to about it kind of patted me on the head and said, oh, that's so cute, that you want to do that. That's just so sweet.
Sister,
Abby.
I understand that.
But some people, they're just too far gone, and they're never going to trust the pro-life movement, and they're just never going to walk away. And literally, people are looking me in the face and saying this. And I'm like, but that's exactly what I did. And they're like, yeah, but I mean, you're different. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not any different. And so that, people that know me know that just made me want to do it even more, So, so we got it launched. And that first year, we actually helped over 50 workers leave their jobs. And then now we have helped 650 workers leave the industry. And it's not a success for us if we just, help them leave and we never talk to them again. It's a success for us. The 650 number, those are people that we've helped to leave, and we have helped them come to a saving relationship with Christ, because that's a success for us.
Yes.
And so, we know that they're only going to get true healing through Christ. So that's what the 650 number represents. And then we have also helped 7 full-time abortion doctors. So 7 full-time abortionists quit their job killing babies, and now they work as pro-life doctors. So
unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, I love how God does that. I mean, here I was, part of my story, Abby, is I was working in Congress and working for members of Congress. And I'm like, you know what? The only thing is the church is the answer. And everybody was like, I was like, who's ever built a 501c3 get out the vote system for the church in all 50 states? Nobody. Why has anybody done that? And they're like, well, churches are not going to sign on to that. Well, they're signing on, and they're wanting to activate people. And at some point, you have to just follow your heart and pioneer something. I love that. And thank God for those people that they had that support to walk out. So good.
Mm-hmm.
So the world is different. Praise the Lord. Roe v. Wade is gone. But we all had our victory parties, right? And we're excited, and then went back to work. The landscape just looks really different now. But abortions are still happening. We've got all these mail-in abortion pills happening all over the country. What is your advice to the body of Christ, regardless of denominational background right now, on what the landscape looks like and what's our part to play right now?
I mean, right now, the biggest thing that people are talking about right now is chemical abortion. Chemical abortion is, and we knew it would be, it's already been something that should have been on everybody's radar for years. So
yes,
when I worked at Planned Parenthood, the last Planned Parenthood conference I went to was in 2009. And they told us in 2009 that by the year 2020, they wanted medication abortion or chemical abortion to make up over 50% of abortions. And they succeeded. So they've been on this trajectory since I left in 2009. They essentially want to make surgical abortion pretty obsolete, except for later cases. They want to continue to change the REMS, change all the regulations so that women can be delivering babies in their homes through medication abortion up until, 16, 18 weeks. So that's really the goal of the abortion industry, is really to make surgical abortion unnecessary. And why do they want to do that? Well, because with medication abortion, you don't have to have a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So, surgical abortion, it requires a doctor or it requires a nurse. In some states, California, some other states, you can use a nurse, but you've got to have medical personnel on staff to do a surgical abortion, which means you have to pay your medical staff to do a surgical abortion. So doing a medication abortion, you can do those any day, any time of the day. They can be available now. Biden's pushing for them to be over the counter, behind the counter. So, a woman could potentially walk into a CVS at 1:00 in the morning at a 24-hour pharmacy and, walk up to the pharmacy counter and say, I need the medication abortion pill and receive that abortion pill regimen and take it home. So, and that doesn't, you don't have to have a physician to do that. So, so I think that's where our focus really needs to be, and probably where it should have been this whole time, because they were looking to ramp that up this entire time, and they've done it. Medication abortion, of course, chemical abortion is 4 times more dangerous for women than surgical abortions. You would think, because of that statistic, the abortion industry would not want to push this forward, but we've known all along that they're not interested in women's safety. They don't care about women's safety because it's not about women at all. It's about killing children. It's about child sacrifice. And that's what it's always been about. I think the pro-life movement has said for a long time, abortion's about money. It's about money, money, money. And, I've been telling them it's not about money. It's about so much more than money. Abortion is about child sacrifice. Abortion carries a demonic spirit, and it's the same demonic spirit that we see in the Old Testament. So we hear, preachers talking about Molech and Baal, right? And we think, oh, that's crazy. Those people were offering their children up, to sacrifice them. That's insane. That's exactly what the modern woman is doing today, right? So, when we look back in history and we see, people sacrificing their children, offering their children up to these gods and demons, why were they doing that? Well, they were doing it for, a successful farming year, successful year of crops, or, success, wealth, these different things, right? Why are women sacrificing their children today? For wealth, for success, for careers, for education. It's the same thing, right? We just call it something more palatable. We don't call it sacrifice. We don't call it child sacrifice, right? We call it choice. We call it reproductive health. We call it the termination of pregnancy. But at the end of the day, it's that same spirit of evil. It's that same demonic spirit. And it's not just about money. It's so much deeper than that. And they're never going to stop. They're never going to stop the killing. So, yes, we've got to vote. Yes, we've got to put measures in place to do everything we can to slow down the killing. Absolutely. But it's never going to end. As long as sin roams around this earth, it's never going to end. But we have to do everything we can to put up barriers and roadblocks to make women think twice, to slow down that train, right? Because their mind is like on this high speed train once they're in crisis. So like our job is just to kind of pull the brake up a little bit and to say, hey, let's take a step back. Let's think about this clearly. Let's get you out of a state of crisis so that you can just slow down a minute and let's think this through.
Well, and we're losing what it means to be a woman, right? I mean, we're trying to compete with men on every level. We're trying to bring equity, right? And, sacrifice our lives on the altar of our careers or our influence or power or whatever it is, and not realizing that part of our hearts as women is this tender, nurturing part that is fulfilled by having children. And I just had a grandbaby, it's the best thing in the earth, and I'm way too young for that. But it is the coolest thing, and we're actually sacrificing our lives and what God created us to do, part of who we are as women, at the sacrifice of convenience. And it is sad. And so I love that you and your organization and your ministry are empowering women to be real women as well. And that we don't have to sacrifice our children for our own identities and purpose and destiny. That is not what we're doing here. And more people need to hear that. And so thank you, Abby, for being a voice on that. So many people right now are very concerned. We've talked even in your story about different churches that are kind of going off the reservation and not being biblical anymore. They're not really studying the scriptures or speaking from the pulpit on what's happening in our country from a biblical point of view. Part of our ministry is to help people navigate some of these hot topics and actually produce Bible studies on these topics. How are you advising Christians that are trying to follow the Lord, that are trying to walk in this culture, but also trying to stay biblical? To how do they look for fellowship? What do they look for in ministry leaders? What do your family look for?
Yeah, so interesting you're bringing this up. I actually just did a podcast on this, on my podcast, with a pastor named Lucas Miles. He just wrote a book called Woke Jesus, and it's really a great book. And he's a pastor, and he has like a whole section, his book, dedicated to, just discussing this exact thing, what to kind of be on the lookout for if you're looking for a church community. And I was talking specifically about, it was kind of funny we were talking about on my podcast, because my husband and I had just kind of experienced this, not with a church that we go to, but my kids went on a field trip to go watch Aesop's Fables. And it was being shown at this church in Austin. And I had never heard of this church before. And we've been in Austin for a long time, since 2011. And so we've been here a long time. And my husband, Doug, says, have you ever heard of this church? It's huge. It's like a monster church. It's right here in the middle of Austin. I said, no, I've never even heard of this before. And he says, well, he had sent me some pictures of it. And the inside was enormous and gorgeous. And I was like, wow, this is just crazy that neither one of us have ever heard of this. So he says, yes. And apparently they have a really large arts department. This is like kind of what they do. They put on a lot of productions and, all of this. And I said, wow, that's really cool. So I said, well, I'm going to go to the website and see what I can find on the website. So I go on the website, and I mean, church is in the name. So I know it's a church. Right. Okay. But Doug did tell me that on the inside of the church, there was not one cross anywhere.
That's
on the inside of the church.
Big sign right there.
And I was like, so then when I went to the website, there was nothing on it besides the fact that it said the word church. There was nothing on it that would have really indicated to me that it was a Christian church. And so I started kind of, looking through, I was trying to find like what they believe, right? Like what's their stance on things? What do they even believe about the gospel, right? I mean, that should be
statement. Yeah. Do they have
like that should be on every website.
Yeah.
Right. Like what we believe about the Bible. What do we believe about God? What do we believe about the gospel? So anyway, so I went, I'm, scrolling around, I'm kind of flipping around stuff on their website, and I go to the, who we are and what we believe. And the website says on the About Us section, it says that, the core things that they believe in are on the beliefs and values. It says that what we value: acceptance, diversity, innovation, encouragement, and authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought, nothing about the gospel, nothing related to the gospel at all. And so then I went to their staff pages. They have a very large staff. for this very large church. And I guess one of the questions that they asked all the staff to put in their bio was, what's something that you love about Austin? And almost, I would say 90%, maybe a little over 90% of the people in their answer said that the thing they loved the most about Austin was the diversity in Austin.
I was just about to guess that.
And all of those things were just like
Ding,
red
ding,
flags,
ding, ding,
like
ding.
flying everywhere, right?
yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
So I started doing, that sent me down like a rabbit trail. I started like doing all this stuff, like looking up all the stuff about the church. And I went on to find all these different things about how, the pastor, when they formed the church, the pastor said they intentionally do not want to have crosses in the church. They intentionally do not talk about any sort of controversial issues. It's very much a like buddy Jesus type of message that they're putting out there, right? This like woke Jesus, like Jesus is one of us.
Yeah, he's
right.
Yeah, he's one of us. He's your best friend. He's not going to hold
right.
you accountable to anything.
That's right. There's really no heaven or hell.
There's
it's
no
just
truth. Yep.
Everybody goes to heaven and there's no hell and everybody's fine and I'm fine and you're fine and Jesus is fine with whatever you're doing. And that's really the message that they give. And that's the message that they were founded on as I started looking through how they were formed. And so I would say that, as you're looking for a church, as you're looking for a congregation, you've got to really ask questions, especially in these times, because there's a lot of churches out there with great websites and they sound really great and they've got cool, catchy names and all this kind of stuff. And they have a beautiful sanctuary and they've got great programs, but are they teaching the gospel? Are they actually biblically sound? Are they willing to talk about the hard topics? Is the church, just last night at my church, I'm the pro-life coordinator, of course, at our church, couldn't get out of that job. And, at our church, I went and asked our pastor, I said, look, we've never done anything like this before. And this was in the fall. And I said, can we please have a remembrance for the unborn, a service, a healing service, for, anyone who's lost a child to miscarriage, abortion, or stillbirth. And he said, yeah, are you willing to do it, to lead it, to put it together? I said, yeah. He said, then yeah, let's do it. And so
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So we did it. We did it in the fall. We did it yet last night. It was very well attended. It was open to the community. And it was just such a beautiful and healing service, And so now we have a very robust pro-life committee and community within our own church. And so, but right away, we were like, look, if this isn't a pro-life church, this isn't for us.
Yes.
If this isn't a church that speaks up for traditional marriage, this isn't a church for us. If this isn't a church that does X, Y, and Z, this isn't for us. And we were very just upfront and honest from the beginning. And we just talked about it, and said, where is this going to be something? If I want to get up and promote 40 Days for Life, am I going to be able to do that? If I want to, have a diaper drive for our local pregnancy center, is that going to be okay with this church? And the pastor said, absolutely. This is where you belong. This is what we believe.
I think this is key for people to understand. The battle is shifting, and every local church needs to be adopting, and I'm a broken record on this, Abby, adopting their crisis pregnancy center in their community, putting it in their missions budget, getting people to volunteer there, actually make this a ministry of the local churches, actually working, with legislation in your state, helping ministries like yours. So as we close out here, we're almost out of time, but I say this to say, folks, if you're looking for a church, or if your church is not activated in this, you need to have a serious conversation with your pastor and see where are they on this, because we have to make choices and we have to speak up. And if they're not willing to take a stand for life on any level, what are we doing with our tithe money and our giving money? We need to be diverting that to churches that are going to stand true for biblical values. So, Abby, as we close out, Yeah, I love your podcast. Give a plug to everybody for your podcast. How do they find your ministry and everything you do? And just thank you again. Thank you for being faithful all these years. Guys, get Unplanned. If you haven't watched the movie, check out the movie. But yeah, give everybody a final plug and thank you for staying faithful, sister.
Yeah, of course. So my website, where you can find kind of all things, all my books, is abbyj.com. And my, I've got several books that are out. You can find them all there. And then my podcast is called Politely Rude, and that you can listen to that on my website or anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And then both of my nonprofits are also listed on the website, and you can go to their sites from my site, and all kinds of resources and things I've written and everything. It's all loaded on the site.
Well, thank you so much, Abby. Thanks for continuing to give us our marching orders in this new world. And as we celebrate the ending of Roe v. Wade, guys, we have a lot of women to bring healing to, a lot of men to bring healing to, and a lot of babies still to save. So we just get back to work every day on this issue. And the church, guys, we have to stand up. I mean, this is non-negotiable. If your church, again, is not standing up on the life issue, please talk to your pastor or find another church.
That's right.
That is what we need to be doing.
It's that simple.
It's really that simple. Just like we have people moving to different states, we need to be moving different churches based on belief systems. And I hate to say that, but that is the truth. So, Abby, thank you so much again, sister. And check out everything, Abby Johnson. And we'll see you next time with Conversations with Christians Engaged. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible podcast. What a time we've had. We love you so much. We love being in your life. Have you subscribed? Have you shared this with your family and friends? Please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, wherever you get your audio or video pods. We need your help. This mission is undergirded by individuals just like you that support this ministry monthly, annually, and whenever you think about us, to be able to reach over 1 million Christians in the next 2 years. That's our goal. We want to empower 1 million Christians around America to pray, vote, and engage regularly. Will you help us? We're here to do that, and we need your help. I want to say thank you to our partners at The Stream. What an incredible online publication put out by James Robison and Life Outreach International. As we come together across denominational lines as believers to discern what God's saying about the news of the day and to hear from different viewpoints. Check out The Stream, make it your homepage, and get on their email list. This product is amazing. Also, our partners at Edify app, put out by Christian Post. This podcast app is a convergence of Bible teachers around America. We're excited to be a part of Edify app. Check out all their other podcasts. Thank you so much again for caring about this nation. We're here to help you pray, vote, and engage. We'll see you next week.